Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Jews with the News. I'm Eli.
And I'm Jack, and we got another special episode with you with another special guest.
Another
Uh,
special guest.
just so you know, there's a cat in the window up there. She might come down and say hi.
Uh,
I don't really know what she's doing, but she's just chilling.
yeah, she's our rally cat. We have a great episode with a great guest, like you said, but before we get this guest on, um, first, Jack, let's talk about something that I think we take a little bit for granted, and that's water.
What do you mean we take it for granted?
Well, I think it's just like weird how a liquid that is so essential for life. It is like the fundamental ingredient for life, right? Also has the capability to cause so much pain and death. Like, isn't that so weird how something that gives
Oh,
life.
you're talking about like drowning and like waterboarding and that kind of stuff.
Right, exactly. Like water is used to torture, it's used to kill, right? Like it's a weapon and it's also a source of energy. Like how does that work? Like isn't like doesn't it make you just think like, whoa man, like what is this
It's
world?
it's it's crazy. So are you suggesting that we should just ban water? We should outlaw
Absolutely
water?
I am. Yeah. Screw water. We can survive off of Gatorade.
Yes. Okay, on that note, we'd like to introduce our very special guest for this episode.
Uh,
So, you want to introduce yourself just a little bit?
Sure. My name's Avi, as they said. I'm a rising junior at Ladue. Maybe by the time this comes out, I will be a junior. I'm so far at least, the youngest guest to be on this podcast, so an honor. And yeah, that's pretty much everything about me.
yeah, that's everything you need to know about Avi, really. I
Yeah,
mean, that's all there
there's
is
nothing
to
interesting
him.
about me.
Avi, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yes.
Interesting.
We
All
should keep
right.
a tally, Eli. I feel like we should keep a tally of people's
Wait,
answers.
have you not been keeping tally this
No,
whole
I forget
time?
who said what.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll have two columns and then a third one that's just Jackson's opinion. Go watch that video, by the
But
way,
no,
if you haven't.
Jackson thinks a hot dog is a taco, but he doesn't think tacos are sandwiches, so he doesn't think a hot dog is a sandwich.
Oh yeah, good point. Go watch that video; it's really good. Okay, but let's move on to this episode, in which we are first going to discuss what is widely believed one of the greatest shows of all time. Avi, you don't quite see it that way, do you? What show am I
No,
talking
no.
about?
Talking about Friends, the worst sitcom on the planet.
Yes, Avi, why do you think it's the worst sitcom in the planet?
Okay, I'd say up to season 3, you can argue that it's like an all right show, right? But then they just run out of ideas. Like it's so obvious they run out of ideas. Like first of all, Ross just becomes unbearable. I can't stand him. He's just like the worst character ever. And
Yeah,
then
true.
Phoebe, it's like they turn her into like just complete like lunatic. Like they don't even have anything about her where it's like, oh, she's a lunatic, but she can reel it back. Like she's just always stupid. It's so annoying. And then don't even get me started on the Monica Chandler relationship. It's just I just don't like either of the characters, all right? At all. They're just both so annoying. And like I'd say I mean, Friends definitely didn't normalize the laugh track as like a thing, but I'd say it created the trend of having a laugh track after every 3 sentences. And it's like, don't tell me when to laugh. I'll tell me when to laugh.
If it's funny enough, you'll know when to laugh.
Have you ever
Exactly.
heard like go on YouTube and type in like Friends without the laugh track?
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like
I've
it's
seen
like
it.
everyone gets a line and then they wait for 5 seconds and like it's the most uncomfortable thing in the world.
Yeah,
Um,
no, bro. I hate laugh
I
tracks.
think I'm kind of mixed about the show Friends. I think there are definitely some ups and there are definitely some downs. I remember like when I was watching it, like I'd watch it. I didn't ever binge it because I didn't find it like good enough to binge, but like it was good to where I'd finish it. But after like I was in the middle of like I think I was on season 7, like episode 4 or something, like in the middle of the episode, and I'm just like, you know what, I like need to take a break from Friends because like it's just not it right now. And then like a year later I picked it back up. So I think for me Friends is kind of it's good, but like I do see why you would think that it's really not that good. I think the only character that they handled well throughout the entirety of the show, they kept a consistent story arc. They added character development is Joey.
Yeah, definitely.
I
He's
think
my
that's the
favorite
only
one.
character that they like actually handled like really well. I think all the other characters you can make an argument to where like they were good at points, bad at points. But I feel like for the story purposes, he had a very nice character development. He progressed, he grew, and he was a very enjoyable character
And
to
he
watch.
was hilarious.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Um,
But I do think that the worst character was Phoebe. I like Phoebe as a character, but in terms of storyline, it went down very quickly. And, it's disappointing because she was like a great character at the beginning, but then it just kind of went downhill. So I can see how you could say that about that.
so I have a little bit of a different opinion. I don't think it's like the greatest show of all time. I think it was between mediocre and pretty good, pretty much until when Rachel got pregnant. I think when that happened, and it was like Ross's baby, then it like went downhill. By the way, these are like spoilers. Like
Whoops.
then it was
Show's
just
been out for
bad.
long enough.
Then it was just bad. But before that, I think it had a lot of like good moments. I do agree that Joey was the best. Actually, personally, I liked Phoebe's arc of Phoebe more than most of the other characters. I really did not like Ross, Monica, and Rachel throughout most of the show.
I think the problem that I have with Phoebe's story arc is they tried to make it have a story arc, but it just wasn't at all consistent with what they introduced. With the other characters, like with Rachel, with Monica, not so much Chandler, but with Rachel, Monica, and Ross, they had no story arc at all. Like there was no character development. They stayed the same throughout the entire show.
Yeah, I think that like for Phoebe though, like first of all, Phoebe was like way funnier and just like more fun than the others, which I think gives her more points automatically. But I think like in terms of development, they did do some like good things. Like it wasn't like very consistent, but like at the beginning, right, she was very like she was very solo, right? She wasn't like a big relationship person, and like she wasn't that big into family, right? And then she like carried triplets for her brother, and she found Paul Rudd, who I forget his name, and like they weren't like Paul Rudd probably wasn't like the best option for a husband, but like he was fine, and like I thought it was sweet. But yeah, I agree. I don't think it was like the greatest TV show of all time, which I think people who were like growing up at around that time feel like.
It's way overhyped. Like
Say the only reason I watched it is because I was also watching like Narcos at the time, and like I needed kind of okay, like I needed something, like I needed like the milk to balance out the chili
right.
pepper,
No,
right?
for sure.
So it's like I was watching something so like lacking in storyline and any stakes compared to like this hunt for Pablo Escobar across the Colombian landscape. So it's like, I just needed that balance. And then after a while it's like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna just watch The Office again because I can't do
Yeah,
this.
I agree. I think The Office is definitely better than Friends.
Yeah. Yeah, and we don't have to argue there. Not everything's like an argument, right, Jack? Like, everyone
Right.
can say like The Office is better than Friends.
Right.
Um, you know,
Should have
Although
an
some
argument
people would
about how
argue.
everything isn't an argument.
yeah, that's true.
Speaking of arguments, I know that you both did debate for you. Obviously, still
Uh-oh.
doing debate because he's in high school. Eli did debate all 4 years. I did debate for approximately 2, 3, maybe 4 months if you want to count it. But we've all had experiences, and yet for some reason, we all hate debate.
I wouldn't.
Eli says he doesn't hate debate. He hates debate.
You can see it in his eyes.
No, I hate a lot of aspects of debate, but like I overall I think like there's a reason like Avi and I like have stuck with it. Like so like there are parts that we hate, and I think sometimes those hateful parts are definitely more than like the beneficial parts. But like I think like there's like a reason why we stay with it, right? Other than just like mere commitment.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say personally, the reason I stand a bit is because like I like doing it specifically. Like I like just doing the speech and debate, and then also like the team that we have at Ladue specifically is like a solid team. Like everyone's like super cool, and like we're pretty tight knit. And even though we're all to an extent competing against each other. It never feels like we are. It always just feels like even if we're in the same room, just feels like we're in the same room just competing. It never feels like we're going up against each other. So I'd say the community aspect and the fact that, I mean, it's just fun is really nice. But a lot of the things that I really don't like are kind of everything else about the community, like beyond the Ladue community and just in general. Like I noticed specifically in debate. So it's like in the debate part, beyond the speech part, but I'll get to the speech part as well. We talk about like a lot of serious, like very politically divisive and polarizing things. So people will go in using really like controversial arguments, like like race and class and this and that, and they'll go in acting all knowledgeable about that stuff, and then they'll leave the debate and like they'll leave the room with like none of that is important to them in the real world. Like they'll talk hot stuff about it in the debate room and like at practice rounds, and then they'll leave their, I mean, high school experience not caring, like not giving a damn about that. And that's something that always rubbed me wrong, because it's like, how are you going to be surrounded by this and spend nights and days and hours on this, and then just be like, whenever it comes like to actually talking about it.
Right. I completely agree. I think my main issue is basically that with debate. I think along with, people just argue it to win, because the point of debate is to progress farther in the debate or in the event or whatever. So they'll say things to win the argument per se. And whether they believe it or not isn't the point of like what debate is. Although I think it's important to, still express what you believe despite trying to win. Like if you are arguing a point where you completely just disagree with it, but you're still arguing it to win, it's just, I think it kind of defeats the whole purpose, because yes, the point is to win, but it's also to learn about these issues and to develop your own opinions and be able to express thoroughly and thoughtfully your opinions. And if you're just arguing what you don't agree with, you're not learning much.
Right. I think that like that's definitely true. I think that lots of like I've kind of pride myself on being very vocal about this is something that's very important to me. I feel like debate is a place to effectively advocate for something I care about. Like even if it isn't the strongest argument, I want to like talk about it so that, at the very least my judge and opponents can hear what we have to say about this. And I was very thankful to have partners that would let me do that most of the time. But
Oh no.
no, lots of times though, like there are people who are like, well, I think we would win if we just like made it sound like we cared about this like specific group of people, and then like we guilt people into thinking this, and then when we leave, kind of like Avi said, we just like don't actually care what's going on. We're just trying to win around through, and like we use other people's experiences to try to guilt people into that, which is not how I think debate should operate, right? Because if that's not the best way to argue, and it's not like it feels very icky, I guess is how I want to say. I also think it's interesting that on an activity designed to help better your communication skills, there is a huge lack of effective communication between team members, which I think is a big reason why a lot of people who aren't in the debate community are a little bit wary of the debate community.
I think, sorry.
No, go
I think
ahead.
from my experience, I'm friends with like a lot of people who do debate. And like with anything, there are going to be issues, but I think given the fact that I just find it interesting how I personally think that debate is the most drama-filled club at our school. I think the stories I hear and the reasons why people do things or like say things or whatever, it's just it's as Eli put, icky. Like I think there's just too many issues that I've heard about. Of course, I'm not a part of the community anymore, so I mean, you guys can correct me on this, but I've heard so many issues with people, teams, between teams, partners, and stuff like that, and it just creates an environment, in my opinion, that's not enjoyable, which is part of the reason why I left. The other part is, it just wasn't for me, and I'm happy with where I ended up, and I'm sure you guys are happy with you where you ended up. But for me, like the whole drama stuff, like I just couldn't handle it. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I mean, I do definitely notice drama, which is kind of a natural outcome of having practice 4 days a week, for like an hour and 30 minutes at least, and then also spending like how long is a tournament? Like sometimes like 20 hours over like a span of 2 days together. So I guess drama is kind of a natural outcome when you're spending that much time together and you guys are tired, and then sometimes at the ends of your patience or upset. And there is definitely also the fact that actually I would say the debate community attracts a pretty diverse group of people, but then actually doing debate kind of creates like not a personality, not like their personality, but kind of a personality within them that kind of evolves and changes around that environment. So I'd say that also kind of ignites a bit more drama, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't want this to be like a don't join debate like thing.
Right. I'm going to
Right.
say this because I didn't do debate, and then you can pick it up. If you want to do debate and if you enjoy doing debate, keep doing it, because you can do good out of it. It's one of the better clubs to join because you actually can learn stuff. So
Right.
I'm
That being said, sometimes you just need to blow off a little steam, right? I think anyone who has committed to a community and to an activity for, years is bound to have a few qualms. I don't think that means,
Yeah.
screw the entire concept, but, I think it's important to blow off some steam, and we're going to do it not live, but we're going to do it publicly for all of our subscribers. Yeah.
Wait, is that my cue?
Is that your cue? Oh,
yeah, want it to be your cue.
yeah, sure. Let's make it your cue. What a great transition, Avi. So now, yeah, now it's time for something that Jag and I are both really excited about. Avi,
Are we? Are we?
sorry, we are nervous and excited about. Hopefully, we won't have to edit this at all, but you might see some editing. We love what Avi says. We think he is a very funny person, and so we have decided to give him 5 minutes just to say whatever is on his mind. We don't know what he's going to talk about. We're going to interrupt him every now and then. If it's really good, it might go longer than 5 minutes. So yeah, we'll just start rolling now. Avi, start
All
talking.
right. You guys know what I find really like weird and screwed up?
What?
So like how like little kids they'll have like issues in school and then they'll get diagnosed with ADHD. Why is like so many doctors' first response just like, yeah, all right, drug the kid up. Just give him some Adderall. Like
Because
why is that the first response
they
every
get
time?
paid by the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, I know, but like
It's
why are
corrupt.
the parents and like the teachers just so normal with it? Just so normal with like, yeah, just take this like 60 milligrams of just this suppressant of all your child's emotions. And
I
then
think
and then if you're surprised by the fact that, they're acting different and uncomfortably.
I
Boo-hoo.
think that the thing about that is that doctors are being paid by the pharmaceutical companies to get prescribe people with these drugs, and the parents think that the doctors are trustworthy. That's why you go to the doctors, because you trust their opinion and what they're going to tell you. So if they tell you to take this drug, if they tell you to tell your kid to take this drug, they're going to tell their kid to take the drug because they trust the doctor. That's the whole process.
And like the biggest thing about that is like just capitalism and big pharma, but that is a whole different conversation that people have written books on and could probably go over that better than I can. But like more on like the kid aspect, like I've seen so many kids that just don't take their medicine, and like they were kind of like, it sounds mean, but insufferable in middle school, but then like in high school they kind of just like mellow out. So I feel like this whole drug approach is really stupid because like the kids like they'll like pretend to take it in front of their parents. Like I know a kid with like ADHD and yeah, he had like ADHD and dyslexia. He said like he pretended to take it in front of his like parents or whatever for a while, and then he just like he ended up like mellowing out, and just he ended up getting track on school just because like he kind of adapted. And then he said he was also lucky because he had teachers that like were understanding. So I feel like the issue is like the solution. I mean, obviously the whole drug thing is a whole different layer of like medical corruption that is kind of hard to go into in the small time frame we have. um but like the best way to address it is not through like treating it like a science, because mental health isn't a science. It's like a very abstract concept, which is why we have spectrums and not just like linear scales. So it's like we need to tackle that head on and treat each kid like they're their own person, because I mean that's what they are.
Yeah. That's a very good point. A lot more introspective and deep than I thought it would have been. Which I actually really liked. I was a little nervous, I'm gonna be honest. Um, no, I think that's actually really poignant. I do agree that, you know, there is a problem with how we treat children with mental health issues. And I feel like the doctors are like, well, how can we best get this child to fit in with the rest of the group, which should not be the goal. The goal should be, how can we best effectively allow this child to express him or her or themselves while also like creating an environment where they can learn, right? And they shouldn't have to kind of like try to make them sheep like, or right, like try to make them
Yeah,
act like every other kid.
because mostly with like the studies that like say like kids with Asperger's and autism are like really smart, or like beyond the like the normal intelligence level of just like your average kid in school. I feel like beyond just like mental potential, like we're losing that child's like own security net and like ability to grow, just by kind of chalking it up to, okay, well, how do we make them fit in? Because I mean,
Right.
like
Right.
what, like I don't even see the purpose in fitting in to begin with.
Yeah. That's why you got that haircut, right?
What? This is a nice haircut, all right. I'm not even gonna let you disrespect this.
Uh, do you have another topic?
Another hot take.
I was actually going to use that as a transition. I was gonna be
Oh,
like,
my bad.
you know,
Sorry. Pretend this never
mental
happened.
health.
Yeah,
The
pretend.
all right. Let me just like, okay. So on the topic of mental health, I'd say one of the biggest communities where mental health is. I mean, I'm fortunate to have like a mom that like understands mental health as an issue, but like one community where it's like I notice mental health issues just go completely under the radar is like Asian communities. Because and I mean people say it's because of the whole like, you know, idea that, you know, Asian kids have to do good in school, but I don't even think it is that. Because I mean parents would not put like their child's grades just like over their child's existence, obviously. Like there's the stereotypes and everything, but it's definitely not the grades. I think it's just the fact that they kind of grew up in, and I think this isn't even like specific to Asia, this is just like everywhere, where like in earlier times mental health was less of an issue because a social media didn't exist, so we don't have like all this exposure to every single kind of media ever. And then like b, it was just ignored. I mean, like everything was way more primitive back then when it came to like mental studies. Like people used to think being gay was like contagious or something like that. So obviously it's very much a generational thing. And then along with countries that like a lot of Asian immigrants come from being, you know, very much less versed on like mental health and stuff like that, it's like a huge issue I see in Asian American communities, just like along with the mounting pressure to do good from their parents, like become like, you know, a doctor, engineer, whatever the stereotypes tell you. It's a very huge problem in the minority community, not the minority, the Asian American community, I noticed.
Um, so obviously, I, you know, don't grow up in that family, so I can't really speak upon uh the issues of it because I'm not as well informed as I probably should be. And that's my fault, and I apologize for that. But I do have a question.
Yeah.
It's if there is this like massive problem in mental health in Asian families communities. Why is it being like? Are there steps being taken to address it, and I'm just not aware of it at the moment? Or is it just kind of being swept under the rug, like, oh, it's just because mental health is an issue, like that's nothing to deal with?
So I'd say that it's as like a whole, because the Asian community is like, first of all, is very divided, just like among different like ethnic identities and stuff. Like some people don't consider South Asians like me like Asian, which is stupid. There's like definitely a lot of division among that. So there's definitely isn't like a uniting call to begin with. But and then I'd also say that like individually there isn't a lot of change going on like among my friends. I noticed, just because there is a lot of negative stigma behind mental health, and obviously um like mental issues are bad, but they're valid. And people like don't draw that distinction between like something can be valid but then also like harmful to you. So it kind of scares them from like A, talking to their parents, and then B, like even noticing it within themselves. So and then you kind of look at just like Asian behaviors of kind of prioritizing like school and like stacking your resume over other things, and kind of those, I guess, traditionally toxic parents like parent child dynamics that you have in a lot of Asian communities and like households. So I guess the fact that as a whole the stigma is very negative, along with having those specific, I guess, association, makes it a very uphill battle in that regard. I do know there's a lot of individual cases such as mine where I do have like a very understanding mom and brother. And then also I know like some of my like a lot of my Asian friends, they have that conversation with their parents, and it's not pretty at all, at all. But they do have that conversation, and it definitely becomes more of a relevant thing to those families and to those like those kids specifically, because within them it becomes something more comfortable to talk about, and then within the families it also becomes something more comfortable to talk about.
Yeah. Well, that was again very deep and very introspective and very uh, helpful, I think, for all of us here. I think we all learned something that I think either of us expected to learn going into this conversation. So yeah, I mean, what a great way to end. Like we start with just talking about water and like friends, and I love this. It's a nice progression. Thank you so much for coming on this show, Avi. Is there anything else any of you want to say?
Don't
Okay,
do drugs, kids.
good. Good job, Avi. Okay, thank you all for listening. Please subscribe and check out any of our other videos. All right, see you guys.
Yeah.